All right, I'm here with, this is Casper and Roxie. This is Roxie. And in this video, we're gonna go over the engage-disengage game. I've been called out here. I worked with Casper here about a year ago. He unfortunately went to a board and train and came back with a lot of problems. Don't ever send your dog to board and train. So basically, the guardians have moved into this house. She is new to the picture, or at least since I've seen them. And there's like 4 or 5 dogs next door, and these guys like to bark at them like crazy. So basically, the engage-disengage game is a game that actually teaches the dog that first looking at the other dogs without barking is something that gets me a cookie or a reward, and eventually turning away from the other dogs voluntarily gets me a cookie or a reward. Now, in order to do this, you need a marker word or a marker signal. Some people use a clicker, which we can use. We haven't conditioned the dogs to use the marker or the clicker, so I'm going to show the guardians how to do this real quick. And I'd like to use a clicker for this one because it's a little bit more distinct sound. You can also use the words yes, good, nice, thanks, bien, whatever you want. Now, if you're going to use a clicker, we first have to load the clicker. I'm going to show you how to do it very, very quickly. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, so you click, and then the dog gets a treat within 2 seconds. Doesn't have to sit, look at you, anything. I'm gonna stand right here while I do it, but when you guys are doing this at home, what I would like you guys to do is wander around your house. Go into a new room, and then give the dogs a treat. You missed that one. And then take a couple steps, go in the next room, same thing. So now the click eventually is an indicator that I just did the right thing, or that a treat is coming. You use the click the instant the dog does the thing that you want, or you would say yes, good, nice, or thanks, or bien, the instant the dog does the thing. So if I want to use a clicker for the sit, I would lure him into a sit. Oh, that didn't work. There you go. As soon as the butt hit the ground, I clicked. He jumped back up. So when we're doing this, it's a nice way for loading the clicker. I want you guys to wander around your house doing this. You only have to do this exercise maybe 3 or 4 times. Just walk around your house about 15 or 20 treats, go in a room, click, give both dogs a treat, go in the next room, click, so on. All right, so now we've got one of the guardians over there, and he's gonna be helping us out. Now, what I'm gonna ask her to do is I'm gonna ask her to sit while I'm doing this. The dogs do not have to technically sit to do it. I use the sit as an indicator. If a dog does not feel comfortable or is overly excited or overly aroused, it's not gonna sit down. So the sit can be an indicator that you did the right thing, or that it could also be not the right thing. A sit can be an indicator that the dog feels uncomfortable. In order for this exercise to work, the dog has to feel relaxed and comfortable. We have all the dogs. I haven't had a chance to sit. If you watch so see how he's going after Roxie's face. That's called redirected aggression. I'm frustrated at these other dogs and I can't get to them. And so I'm going to take it out on what's right there. So in this case, I would recommend that face-to-face. That's not healthy. That's not play. That's not a good. And so basically what I would recommend in this case, if you can, befriend your neighbor. Ask your neighbor, hey, is it possible that we want to work with our dogs so we don't bark at your dogs on the fence line? Would it be possible if you bring one of your dogs out? Now, I want to be far enough away where my dog can sit. If my dog can't sit, that means I'm either too aroused or I'm too close. So, Casper, Roxie, Roxie, Roxie. Now again, she is too aroused and she is too close. I also talked to the guardians about maintenance. They're gonna put up a little temporary fence about 3 feet away from that fence. That prevents the dogs from getting face to face and doing what they just did there. That should stop the redirected aggression or help greatly in the redirected aggression that's going on between the 2 dogs here. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and use Casper. Casper, come here. Or we're gonna use both of you guys. All right, come here, sit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask the guardian to start moving. So as soon as the dog looks at, and you gotta have a lot of treats handy really quick. So let's sit. So the first part of this is a 2-part game. It's called the engage part. So sit. And if she gets up, it doesn't mean she's bad. In this case, it just means she's excited. So what you'll find is after a while, the dog is gonna start looking at the other dogs faster, but looking away easier, because when I click, the treat's here, not over there. So eventually what will happen is the dog is gonna see the other dogs, and he can stop now. And the dog's gonna automatically turn away from the other dog and look at you because it's saying, what's up, man? This is when you give me a treat. That's the engaged portion. Now, in this case, we're probably about 30 feet away from the fence. Let's say that the dogs were able to sit here calmly. And if you're using a leash and the dog's pulling, you're too close. You might have to be, we're almost at the edge of the yard. You might have to be a little bit further away, or you might have to be over in your front part of your yard where you're increasing the distance. So the idea is we find a distance where my dog will sit when I can see the other dogs, when I have treats, and I'm not having to ask 8 times. And if it doesn't sit, it's not disobedience, so don't get frustrated. It just means we need more distance. So eventually it gets to the point where the dog is content to sit here and look at the other dogs because it means I'm getting a treat. So essentially the dog's coming out is like a command cue that means like I'm gonna get a treat for something. So eventually what we want to do is at this distance now, and I'm just gonna play the part of a dog. So let's say, and go ahead and walk again. So now as a dog, I like see this and I turn away automatically. Now you're gonna click for the turning away from the other dogs, and that's good. So now the dog is being rewarded for disengaging. So instead of running the other dogs or barking and going crazy, I'm looking away from them. Now we're at 30 feet approximately. After I can get to the point where the dog is looks at the other dogs and automatically looks away and looks at me, then I would maybe, next time I practice, take about 3 or 4 steps closer to the fence. The idea is to eventually be right pretty much where Roxie is, maybe a foot on this side of the fence, and have the other dogs going out there doing their thing, and Roxie is looking away from them because that's what gets her reward. Now there's some things that will impact this. You saw when those dogs came out, they had a lot of energy. They were full of chutzpah. And so that's going to cause these dogs to be more aroused. So we can manage that by a couple of things. We can actually have them bring one of their dogs out on a leash if we have a good relationship with our neighbor. We can have them bring one of the dogs out at a time, which is a lot easier. If it's one at a time and on a leash, and they're walking their dog on the opposite side of the fence, and you're over here, we've increased the distance. And what are the dogs doing? They're practicing not reacting towards each other. Now, you can also exercise your dogs before you do this. If you're gonna exercise your dog, just make sure they have at least 10 minutes to recover and catch their breath before you practice this. Otherwise, their behavior will probably be worse than it's ever been. Roxie, come. Roxie, Roxie. She's like, but these dads got the really good treats. Roxie, puppy, puppy, puppy. There we go. So I clicked for her getting here, and then I gave her the treat. The click comes for the action. The reward comes immediately after, a pet or a treat. So I'd like you to practice this. Look at it as an opportunity to practice. And again, try to meet your neighbors some way, and so you can kind of structure it. If you can work with each dog at whatever distance, and Casper might be able to do it from halfway distance where Roxie has to do it from here, that's okay. They're not in a race, they're not tied together. It's whatever each dog needs to achieve it. But eventually what we want the dogs to come out here and see the other dogs, I don't really care about them. If anything, I see the other dogs, I'm gonna look at my humans and expect to be getting a treat. Roxie, Casper. Casper's got to walk it off. Sit. This is my buddy Roxie. That's Casper, and this is how you can play the engage-disengage game to stop your dog from barking at other dogs.